Great. So Trump is threatening a 25% tariff again on February 1st.
Tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
I think we'll do it February 1st.
Make no mistake about it. He's coming for us.
Or is he? I think we were all under the impression that this is what was going to happen on day one. And yet, it didn't happen. It got pushed to February 1st. Now, I know there's a lot of panic going around in Canada.
President Trump's latest comment, we wanted to say to Canadians that, again, we will continue to work on preventing tariffs.
But what does a 25% tariff actually mean? Well, goods coming into the United States, both from Canada and Mexico, will be taxed at 25%. Goods such as lumber, produce, machinery, aluminum, medicine, cars, oil, and concrete are all going to be taxed. That plus anything else that the US purchases both from Canada and Mexico will be taxed at 25%. So I'll do a comparison today of what people think that's going to happen versus what actually might happen. So I know a lot of Canadians are in panic and they think that as of February 1st, the US is just going to miraculously produce everything on its own and start collecting 25% on everything that they are going to purchase from Canada or Mexico. From the emails that I'm getting from our drivers, people actually think that no more trucking jobs are going to happen both in Canada and Mexico, and companies are just going to miraculously vanish. Now, some of you are even taking it one step further and thinking that the Canadian dollar is just going to collapse. And then there are those that think that the Canadian manufacturing companies and all Canadian businesses that have subsidiaries in the US are just going to pick up their stuff and go to the US in order to avoid the 25% tax. Well, hold your horses, guys. Take it easy. Breathe for a second. All that is just not going to happen, so wipe that out of your head. What actually might happen is as follows. So the first thing we're going to address is the US dollar. Yes, the US dollar is going to strengthen from this. So more money to the US, meaning a stronger US dollar. Where do I think? I think about 7, maybe 8, maybe 9% is going to go up 9 cents on the dollar, 7 cents in comparison to the Canadian dollar. But don't panic, this actually might be a good thing, because if Canada is going to get taxed a percent, and I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the 25%, if they're going to be taxed 10 or 12%, and the US dollar is going to strengthen by 8, 9, 10%, then it's actually a wash off. But I'll get into more of that a little bit later. Now, I know everywhere it says that Trump wants 25%, but that's just the way that he negotiates. He throws 25% and it'll settle somewhere between 10, 12, 11%, but maybe he's actually going for something else. I mean, you are dealing with the mastermind of negotiation, so you really can't understand what is it that he really wants. Does he want the actual tariffs, or is he actually going for something else in order to give back the idea of the tariffs? So let's not forget that back in 2018, when Trump was threatening about the tariffs, and then Canada tried retaliating by adding tariffs to American-made products. And what happened? They settled on the new USMCA, which is actually in effect until 2026. So really, can he really change things in February 1st? Before I wrap up this video, I want to talk about 2 manufacturing plants here in Canada. So one of them, we'll take an example of McCain Foods. The second one is Maple Leaf Foods. These 2 companies ship out hundreds of truckloads a week, if not a month. I don't know the exact amount, but they pump out loads on a daily basis going across Canada and into the US. Now, if you think that just the US is going to stop ordering from Canada overnight because of 25% tariff or a 12% tariff or whatever that number is going to be, it's not going to happen so fast, because the American buyers are going to need to reroute. If they're going to find a US plant, or if they're going to find American companies to buy this food from, it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take time. And a lot of the industries, you wouldn't be able to find an American supplier. That's why they buy them in Canada, because their American dollars go a long way here in Canada. It's going to continue to do that moving forward also. Let's not forget that in 2022, 50% of fresh fruits and 90% of fresh vegetables came from Canada and Mexico. Okay, if you think that just overnight the US population is going to stop eating fruits and vegetables, that's not going to happen. The US consumers are going to end up paying 25% more, or whatever that tariff is going to be, because they're going to be buying it at more expensive prices both from Canada and Mexico. Now, I know that Trump is on this rampage about trade deficit, and he is pushing hard that he doesn't want to be in deficit.
Trade deficit with other nations, unacceptable.
$200 billion deficit. Yes, you're going to have a deficit. Why? Because the US purchases all of our oil from Alberta, and that's why you have such a big trade deficit. I really don't think that you can put Canada in the same category as Mexico. The reason for the trade deficit is because of our oil. And I think that's the first thing that Trump wants to do, is to be energy independent, and drill, baby, drill was his motto from a few years ago.
We will drill, baby, drill.
So for those of you that are still panicking, I want to leave you with a final note. Most Canadian large manufacturing companies have sister companies both in Canada and in the US. So if their company is in Canada, they have sister companies or affiliates in the US. Now, there's going to be a big problem with intercompany trade and how the tariffs work. There needs to be a lot of clarification. It might be that if it's a sister company or an affiliate company, the tariffs will not apply. The second point I'm going to leave you with is that the cars that we produce here in Canada, you need to understand that a lot of the parts in the cars, the engines, the mufflers, the plastic, I mean, there's so many parts that go into a car. A lot of those are manufactured in the US, and a car gets transported a couple of times before the final product is released to the public. So that those parts can be going back and forth a few times before a car is released to you. You also need to take that into consideration, that Trump might be taxing himself when putting a tax on Canada. So I'll end off by saying, yes, there is some truth for this, but we really need to understand who we're dealing with. And Trump has done this before in the past, and he's gotten so far, and it has not affected the North American trade. And I truly believe that moving forward, even with some sort of tax, and even with the revised USMCA, it hasn't affected trade much. And I don't think it's going to affect trade moving forward. So everybody just needs to take a breather and let's just wait it out, and everything is going to be just fine. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel so we can keep you updated on the latest news in trucking, and especially with all these tariffs that are coming out. I'm Ronen, and I'll catch you in my next one.